The Spinoff Podcast Network.
Talofa lava. I'm Madeline Chapman, editor at The Spinoff. If you have the means, consider supporting our high-quality journalism by becoming a Spinoff member. Sign up now at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by SparkLab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about SparkLab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is made by The Spinoff with help from Callaghan Innovation, New Zealand's innovation agency. Here's your host, Simon Pound.
There are a fair few functional drinks that have popped up in the fridges of interesting retail. Drinks that claim to help you focus and recover and what have you, though many, and I'm looking at you, Vitamin Water, have actually been packed full of sugar and dubious science. So many, in fact, over the years that you might be forgiven for thinking that they were all empty claims. But not so today's guest's product. After seeing the impact of cognitive illness on family, he set out to learn more about things that help the brain, and the journey took him to launch a functional drink that is backed by patents, research, and formulated with a Professor of Psychopharmacology from Melbourne. Our guest is Angus Brown, the drink is Arepa, and it's found across the world. He joins us now to chat the entrepreneur's journey, discovery, and selling a drink with a bit more to it. G'day, thanks for joining us.
Hi Simon, not too bad.
Hey, so how is it, Angus, that you came to be interested in this field of nootropics?
I worked for a very large energy drink company, and during that time I kind of struggled with the concept of selling sugar and caffeine to the masses. And I kind of had a moment where I had sold quite a lot of these really large serving size cans, and I saw a 9-year-old kid walk out of a dairy with one, and I was like, am I doing any good here? And then I lost a couple of grandparents to brain-related illness, saw friends and family struggle with things like anxiety and nervousness heading into interviews or social situations, and then I watched the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper, where he takes the magic smart pill and becomes a genius and turns his life around. And so I started to, think, what does a smart drink or a brain drink look like? And then kind of fell into this world of nootropics. And from there, the start of the rabbit hole began.
How does one get into that rabbit hole? So what were you thinking? You were thinking maybe there could be a drink that was good for the brain as opposed to just kind of like hopping you up on sugar and caffeine.
Yeah, I guess I am an optimist, and I have an imagination, and I kind of thought, like, why not? Why can't? And so while working for this energy drink company, I had all these ideas, and originally I was pitching it to the company that I worked for. We're very large and very successful, and if you live in New Zealand, you've probably consumed one of their products. But they weren't really listening, and they were thinking, oh, that's a nice idea, but you should just sell more of our energy drinks. And so I thought, well, bugger it, I'm going to do something myself. And I came across this facility called the Food Bowl, and it's a modular, it's actually funded by Callaghan Innovation, and it's a $30 million modular food factory, kind of like a Willy Wonka factory, and they can literally help you make anything that you can conceive. And I went there as like the fourth ever client, and and we'd done some really rough research, and we knew that berry fruit was good for you. We knew that this New Zealand pine bark was good for you, and we kind of just did some bucket chemistry and mucked around and made the concept of what a brain drink would look like. Google helped, and there were some products overseas that were pointing towards the space of foods for the brain, and for some reason beverages were a bit of a format. We didn't want to go with a pill because that's what a lot of the traditional formats were in nootropics, and nootropics came from 1970s research for fighter pilots and army personnel, and then a lot of research also came from treating people with ADD, ADHD. And
sorry, just to jump in there, nootropics, that means supplementing your body for the brain.
Yeah, so nootropics is a word that means cognitive enhancing.
Right.
And it was termed by neuroscientists in the 1970s, yeah.
And having worked in energy drinks and having worked in marketing, I would have looked at it and gone, all of the active ingredients people talk about, the taurine and the guarana and what have you, they always kind of struck me as being there mainly for marketing rather than for any real benefit. Is that the case? Is that kind of what you're against here?
No, I mean, things like taurine and guarana, which is caffeine, do have science behind them. And I guess the problem that we are solving and that we want to solve is that caffeine is really good to keep you alert. If you don't want to go to sleep, you can have caffeine. If you want to increase your reaction time, you have caffeine. And we're never going to beat coffee. Everyone loves coffee. I love coffee. But the thing that we are trying to solve is that caffeine doesn't do anything for your stress. And so we wanted to create a product that people could have 20 minutes before an interview or before an exam or before a really important situation or moment that could improve their brain in some way, but also, and potentially more importantly, keep them calm. And a lot of products that keep you, or ingredients that keep you calm, often make you drowsy. So there was this kind of fine line that we wanted to walk, where we wanted to provide you mental clarity, but also mental calmness as well at the same time. And that's kind of where the concept and the journey was born. It was trying to find natural ingredients that were safe, found primarily in New Zealand, but had clinical science backed behind them.
And the things you landed on, like particularly the bark extract, pine bark extract doesn't sound particularly tasty.
No, it's not. We surprisingly in New Zealand, Pinus radiata, which is the timber industry, the byproduct of the timber industry contains one of the richest sources of oligoproanthocyanidins, and they are a polyphenol, aka antioxidant, that has shown to do numerous things for human health. And the science that we were interested in was that it showed that it increased oxygen into the brain and was used as a natural alternative to Ritalin for ADD, ADHD children. And so we quite liked that, and when we designed the product, we wanted to have New Zealand-based ingredients that we could protect and that were scalable. So if we were to hopefully one day get investment from the likes of a Nestle or actually just go global like Red Bull did, we would actually have the ingredients that could match that worldwide demand. But yes, you're right, it tastes horrible. So we worked with a clever flavour technologist to mask the bitterness and astringency that this bark provides.
In terms of the formulation as well, you worked with a Professor of Psychopharmacology at Melbourne. Has this been done much before? You'd think with all of these functional drinks and all these people trying to do it, if there was open space with some kind of black currants and some pine bark, people would be trying to make drinks and trying to work with professors.
You would think that, but often, I don't know, I think New Zealanders have an extraordinary ability to, think outside the box and be a little bit more innovative. But yeah, there are, this professor, he has done clinical studies on either natural compounds for the brain individually, but he has done contractual work for the likes of, GlaxoSmithKline, Unilever. He holds patents with Unilever. He worked at Nestle headquarters in Switzerland, looking into the polyphenols in chocolate and their effects on the brain. He's done work for Red Bull, you name it, and he's probably done work for one of the bigger companies on, say, their future products. And so these bigger guys do have science waiting in the wings. But yeah, we are part of a very small group of products and market now that are focused on brain function. And yeah, I guess we got our timing right, and we were the first in New Zealand to do something like this, and especially using the pine bark extract from New Zealand. And yeah, it was a long journey working with a world-renowned neuroscientist, and we did have to pay him quite a bit of money initially, and I call it politely hustling. And so, kind of calling him up one day and saying, "Hey, this is Angus from New Zealand," and then saying, "I've got this idea for a brain drink," and then told him a little bit about my story and said, "Look, I know you're a busy man, but what would it cost to work with a startup to develop a formula?" And he kind of, gave us an indication, and then I ended up flying over there to kind of show him that I was serious. And my business partner is a really talented industrial designer, and he had kind of drafted up an image of what the drink might look like. It's nothing to what it looks like now, but at least we had something semi-tangible that we could show him to show him that we were pretty serious. And we talked for a while, and then he finally agreed to the project, and then from there he produced this formula for us.
And how did you go about testing it and getting some research behind it, and eventually getting patents behind it?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time with with drafting the brief so that we could move forward with that formula. And so the brief to Professor Scully was that it had to be natural, it had to be safe, because we knew that, kids in the States drinking, these, 1.5 litre things of energy drinks were having heart attacks, and we didn't want that. And we said, and so from there we said also we didn't want it to have caffeine in it, because we knew that people were getting their caffeine from coffee. So to be safe, natural, caffeine-free, it had to in some way prove cognitive function, and then at the same time reduce stress. And that combo was very important to us. And then on top of that, it had to have robust scientific evidence, so that if we were to wave the flag globally, we could stand up to scientific scrutiny. It had to have synergies where possible, so that ingredient 1 plus ingredient 2, 1 plus 1 equaled 3 rather than 2, so there was a benefit of combining them, so that we could then capture intellectual property. And so he spent a lot of time and came back with this 50-page report, and then gave us this formula. And so we kind of go, okay, great, we've got a formula. And then it was like, oh, now what do we do? And so he gave us this formula of 4 powdered extracts. And so one was, probably the most interesting part of the brief was that, and you have to source at least one ingredient from New Zealand, because if we were to go global, we wanted to have something that we could protect. He did one step better. He did 2. So, like I said, the first key New Zealand ingredient is this New Zealand pine bark extract. And then the second key New Zealand ingredient is New Zealand blackcurrant extract. And New Zealand blackcurrant extract is shown to reduce mental fatigue and improve alertness. And then the blackcurrant variety that's unique to New Zealand that we use, which we call Neuroberry, is actually shown to have very powerful MAO enzyme inhibition activity. And so the MAO enzyme, the MAO enzyme, is the enzyme that chews up serotonin and dopamine in the brain and oxidizes, and is a precursor to things like Parkinson's or dementia or Huntington's. And so that was really interesting. And so anyway, we had these powdered ingredients, and then we're like, okay, well, we want it to go into a drink. So, okay, let's just pour it into water. And we poured it into water, and then we kind of drank it. And it was like, this is horrible. And then we were just like, okay. And so we went to I'm friends with the Bostock brothers, and so they have a great supply of organic apple juice, and so we used part of their organic apple juice as our base base matrix, and then we used this variety of black currants, this neuroberry juice, and then it still tasted horrible, and so we're going, okay, we don't want to add sugar, we don't want to load it up on sugar because then it'll become unhealthy. And so we worked with a clever natural flavour technologist, and then kind of got it tasting okay. And then from there, we looked at, okay, if we're going to prove this product, if we're going to call ourselves a brain drink, we probably need to do some science. And so we engaged with the University of Auckland at the Centre for Brain Research, and we have undertaken 2 clinical studies. So we completed our first clinical study where it was a double-blind crossover placebo-controlled study. And we showed in that one that we could, there were signs that were showing that we can reduce things like nervousness and uncertainty. So consumers were less nervous and less uncertain, or more certain about their decision making. So there were inklings there that showed that we were having an effect. And then the second study that we're doing is we're scanning brainwave activity, and we're hoping to show we're using an EEG device, and we're giving consumers one drink, and then we're scanning the brain, and then we're also scanning the brain over the long term, because we believe that not only are there short-term effects of mental clarity, but there are long-term effects of overall neurological health. And so that study's been completed in terms of the data capture, and now we're going through the processing of that data, which is about 2.5 terabyte.
How much of that is the pine extract, and how much of that is the black currants? Because I imagine people who aren't in the market for functional drinks, can top up their black currant intake or their New Zealand black currant intake and get some benefits.
Yeah. So the issue with black currants is that you never see them fresh next to blueberries because they don't withstand the post-harvest processing. They kind of get a bit soft and squishy. So we wanted to make something that was, convenient to the consumer. So we have, in terms of the amount of black currants, you have about a cup's full worth of blackcurrant in every bottle. So it's quite a potent dose because we use this extract. This extract is basically the colour compounds of black currants. Pine bark's hard to find. You can grab some bark from a tree and boil it up in water and then drink that if you want to. But yeah, again, it's more of a convenient format. And then the other main compound that we have is L-theanine, and so it's an amino acid found in green tea. And studies have shown that it can reduce anxiety and stress, but it doesn't make you drowsy. And then the coolest thing I think about this compound is that another study has shown to offset the negative effects of caffeine. So if you get too jittery or those effects that you don't really like after your second or third or fourth coffee, you could have something like us. And we have shown in anecdotal studies, and the science is showing behind the ingredient, that we can offset those negative effects.
How do you fund all this? Because Centre for Brain Research trials and working with a psychopharmacologist professor, developing bottles, going to the food bottle, it all seems to be the kind of process you'd do for a very well-funded company.
Yeah, so slowly, surely. Again, the politely hustling terminology comes in. So we had angel investment from the Robinson family. Zach Robinson's my co-founder, and his father Darren have kind of believed in this concept from the start, and that was to get the formulation. And then once we had the formulation, we kind of had some like an asset of intellectual property, and then we started to talk about doing this clinical study. And when our pine bark extract providers found out that we were doing this study, they thought, well, we would be interested in funding some of that study, and so we thought that was a good partnership. So we took on investment from Enzo Nutraceuticals, who make this New Zealand pine bark extract, and they came on board in our company with some shares, and so we have vertical integration now with our key New Zealand ingredient, and then further to that, we have more recently brought on one of the largest blackcurrant growers in the country. This guy used to supply Ribena Global, and so now we have our two key New Zealand ingredients. We've got vertical integration, and along that we have exclusivity to some of the ingredients. We have licensing of some of their intellectual property. And we have a really good story, and we can have full traceability showing, what tree, the pine bark came from, or when the blackcurrants were harvested and where. And it's started to become really fun and really interesting. And not only are we working on the finished food, but we're going all the way back to the raw material, and then seeing how we can harvest it and extract it, and and look at optimizing the value chain essentially.
And doing something that is very cool, which is adding IP to primary products in a country that has a terrible record of making primary products and adding no brand value. Like, for example, the black currants that you've kind of rebranded as neuroberries.
Yeah. So
and are selling them. Are they just dried black currants?
Yeah. So to try them, so they're freeze dried New Zealand black currants, but it's this variety that we call neuroberry. And so in the palm of your hand, just before it went into your mouth, probably was about 100% of your vitamin C for the day. So they're very tart. Yeah, looking at Simon's face, and he screwed it up a little bit. So they're not exactly like a super sweet berry, but they're tart and they're moreish, and they
put
contain
that on your cereal.
Yeah. So you eat them like nuts, or put them on your cereal, or chuck them into your smoothies. And New Zealand black currants, and more specifically this variety that we call neuroberry, has shown to have more vitamin C and more colour, which are anthocyanins, and that's the main health compound found in berries. That's why berries are superfruits, because they contain these anthocyanins, which people call antioxidants, but really it's the anthocyanins that have this benefit towards a myriad of things. Then any other fruit commercially grown in the country, so more colour and more vitamin C than blueberries, more colour and more vitamin C than acai berry, maki berry, strawberry, raspberry, by factors of 2 to 10. And so knowing that, it's kind of thinking, well, why aren't we doing something more special with blackcurrant? It was used as a small base ingredient in a sugary drink called Ribena for all these years.
And stripped of its vitamin C in the process.
Yeah. And then a high school student called them out for it, which was fantastic.
The greatest Scooby-Doo moment in New Zealand history.
So we're just trying to give them the credit that they deserve, and like you said, add some value.
But by adding that level of brand and IP. And so how's it going? Like, you've got to a stage where there's this great product, you've got some international distribution, some local distribution, some big partners who have an interest in adding value to their kind of primary product. What are the next steps?
Yeah, so you mentioned before, we've managed to capture a patent in New Zealand, and where one of the next steps is filing that overseas. So that's very expensive. So we're kind of are going through that process now, and then we have, and the first clinical trial has gone. A lot of that data has gone towards that first patent, so I can't really talk more about that clinical trial. But we were successful in landing the patent here in New Zealand, and then we're just filing that in the overseas markets that we think we have an opportunity in, such as the US, Europe, South Korea, Japan, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, Middle East. And then we have a second patent now, which is kind of following off the back of our second clinical trial, and that just kind of covers a wider space for us, the combination of the two patents, and it gives us more flexibility. And so I guess what's next for us is, we've actually just been accepted into the Sprout Agritech Accelerator, and that's, we're going to go through I think it's like a 4-month course where we get some awesome mentoring and support by some very smart people to kind of help us go from a small startup business to a more functioning company that's operating offshore at a larger scale, because right now we export small amounts to Hong Kong and Australia, and then we ship online to a number of different countries, but it's all quite small and very, very organic. So the next stage this year is to start to export and scale to places like the Middle East, grow our position in Asia, and then look at what the US and Europe looks like for us. But you have to really focus on one thing at a time, and the thing that we're finishing our focus on is just getting our home country right. Because if you don't have your New Zealand business sorted, then you may struggle to grow overseas because things are not right at home.
And what's the goal? Is it a Red Bull kind of goal of creating a new category and being the leader in it? Or is it a vitamin water kind of goal where you launch, capture the imagination, and then sell to a real big company? Is there a kind of trade-off between getting what you must consider to be a good into people's lives at the largest scale, or building up kind of the biggest business?
Yeah. So our goal is to empower mental clarity, empower great achievements through mental clarity. And we do want to be the Red Bull of New Zealand. I hate using Red Bull, so we we do want to provide mental clarity to millions of people worldwide and improve their neurological and mental health. And we believe we have the product and the science to support that. And then for scale, I guess we're open at the moment to how that works. Whether if we just self-fund like Red Bull and we grow on our own, that'll be amazing. But equally, if we have an opportunity to partner with a global multinational that can grow us faster, then we potentially wouldn't say no to that, because it might mean that we can get, we can swap out caffeine and sugar to more people faster. Then that's a right decision, and then it also means that we can tap into their research and development, and which is something that I'd quite like to do. So we're very open to what that looks like. Ideally, New Zealand investment would be the best, but it's just really one step at a time, really.
And in terms of along the way, starting a drink, taking on the big companies, using untested ingredients, choosing to get science behind you when most people kind of just kind of coast on marketing. Did people tell you, you guys were crazy along the way? Did they tell you it wasn't going to work, or that it was too much to bite off?
Yeah, we could have launched. So this idea has been going since 2012, and we launched at the end of 2016. at the start of 2014, we could have launched when Scully gave us this formula, and we had it, in a rough and ready, prototype. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to launch once we had some science and some anecdotal trials behind it to see whether it actually worked. Because the whole reason why energy drinks were successful was because people could feel the caffeine. The reason why alcohol was successful was because you get drunk, and so we did want to be sure of ourselves that the product actually worked. So while we were doing, the clinical studies, which by the way were actually really quite hard to convince people to work with us. Again, politely hustling, keyword. We managed to show in the anecdotal studies, we gave them to a whole bunch of people throughout a whole bunch of, jobs and demographics, and the key piece of information that came back to us was that the more stressed the consumer was, the bigger the felt effect. And we gave them this drink, and we told them pretty much nothing. And we said, how do you feel? When did you take it? What it tastes like, all these things. But they didn't really know what they were taking. So it kind of masked some of the, placebo effect. And we found that people who, doctors, nurses, psychologists, people working on the front line, emergency services, police, teachers, they felt a greater effect from the product versus someone who was perhaps, going for a long walk on the beach. And the science shows that the more stressed or anxious the participant is, the bigger the felt effect with some of these ingredients. So that was really promising, and so when we knew that, we kind of went, okay, well, I think we have something here. And then once you know that, then like no one can stop you. You just do what you do. And again, like I'm an optimist, and the glass is always half full for me, and I think I get on with people okay. And so it was just a matter of time, and you just go on this massive information quest and try and speak with as many people as possible, and then you need to, I guess, equally give the product really great branding and packaging as well, and treat it carefully. So the bottle is it's purple because we want to protect it from light. It's made from flexible BPA-free New Zealand-made PET, which will soon be recycled PET as the source. And it's in that, it's not in glass because we put the drink through a process called high-pressure processing. So that's where we a lot of beverages out there are treated with heat or a preservative to give it its shelf life. Preservatives are nasty, and heat it damages the phytonutrients. And so we didn't want to do that, so we put it into this chamber. We fill the liquid into the bottle cold, close the cap, put these bottles into this basket, wheel this basket into this chamber, and then we close the chamber, fill the chamber up with water, compress the water. It's cold water pressure, German Gumbrell technology. The pressure goes up to 6,000 bar. Think 6 elephants on a 10-cent coin, and that's the pressure that we subject the liquid to. And the microorganisms are literally just squashed, but there's no heat applied. So we maintain the original efficacy of our key ingredients. And so with that, we kind of respect the formula with the processing, and then we give it a really good brand and great imagery because we want to respect the formula from a brand point of view as well.
And if people are listening and are interested, I guess part of the big part here is the advocacy that you guys need and the network of people who are believers in the product. And do you do things like look for fundraising or do crowdfunds in order to build up that base of advocates?
We haven't done a crowd fund yet. Never say never. That might be an option that we look at this year if we do another capital raise. But we do have a number of ambassadors out there that love our product and take it before they do their important task. We've got All Blacks like Sam Kane that like us. We've got Jed Milden, so he's the only Kiwi to ride for Nitro Circus. He's also the world record holder, first person to do 3 backflips with a BMX and then 4 backflips with a BMX. So he loves the product. We've got, really kind of high-powered, busy CEOs that take us just before they do public speaking, and a number of other consumers that touch base with us and say, "Hi there, my husband had a stroke last year, and he genuinely has better days with you, with your product than without. Where can I buy it in this town?" Or so that gives us a really warm feeling and knowing that we're on the right path.
Cool. Can't wait to see where you take it next. Thank you for joining us, Angus Brown, the CEO at Arepa, the very interesting nootropic.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Jose Barbosa, for producing, and thank you very much for having us along in your ears.
You've been listening to Business is Boring, presented by Simon Pound, and brought to you by the Spinoff and Callaghan Innovation.
From the Spinoff Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz. Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tamaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today. The Spinoff Podcast Network.